All right, so what's up, everybody? Thanks for clicking this video. Thanks for tuning in. My name's Simon Hill, Black American from Louisiana, coming to you live from Budapest, Hungary, with my beautiful, sexy wife, Dennis, Shocking Hill, the smartest woman I know.
Aw, thank you.
All right, so we have an hour until I have to get back to work. I got a bunch of classes tonight, but we're going to do this movie review like I promised on the channel. So stay tuned in the community tab section of my YouTube channel, and you will find out what movies we're watching, when we're watching, and also when you can join in on these spaces. And if you have any movie requests, put it in the comments, and we will watch them and review them. So we got our first actual request for a movie review after posting our very first one for the movie Saltburn, which is good. And I'm very glad that this recommendation came because I'm actually very glad we watched this movie. It's very thought-provoking. Climax, the 2018 French horror film. Would you say it's a horror film?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, yeah, it's definitely like a psychological horror.
Mm. Psychological horror, body horror, thriller, mystery. It's got a lot of different genres. Dance film. It's like Paris
Yeah.
is Burning, but Paris is literally burning. So we always start off these videos with our first impressions of the movie. So overall, I would say I enjoyed watching this film. I was not bored at any moment. I was a bit frustrated at certain scenes and stuff like that, but I was in for the ride. And it was a very fun
Mm.
and enjoyable and uneasy and uncomfortable ride. What did you think?
Yeah, I would say I enjoyed it too. Like I was in it. It wasn't. I don't think it was like a fun experience. Like I don't think the movie intended to be fun, but it was immersive and kind of gave me a little bit anxiety.
Mhm.
But yeah, I enjoyed it overall. I'm glad I watched it.
Yeah, me too. I remember seeing this movie on movies2watch.com, but I didn't click it, or maybe I clicked it, but then I was like, nah, maybe something else. Maybe I wasn't in the mood for a foreign film. But glad we
Mm.
finally got around to watching it. And just a quick summary. So the movie is about these dancers who are being recruited to this elite choreographers like weekend boot camp somewhere in France, right? And
Yeah.
they're all very young people put into this building, and they're practicing this choreography with this very famous choreographer. And after they do their routine, after 3 days there, they have a big dance, and then they have a party. And then while they're drinking the punch, they realize that the punch has been laced with LSD, and everybody gets really, really high. And then some funny things happen, and eventually it turns into tragedy. And
Yeah.
I thought it was a good premise, like for an entertaining movie. What did you think of like the idea of the setup of everything?
Yeah, I always think like one place movies are interesting because I think it's harder to make them interesting. And we watched some like pretty bad one place movies, like that movie with Amy Schumer in it. I forgot the name.
Humans.
Oh God, yeah, that was like in one house and it was like really bad in my opinion, kind of boring. So I think it's hard to make like interesting movies that take in one place. And also like drug movies can be cheesy, I guess, especially like if we're talking about like a bad trip movie. But I thought it was, I thought, it was interesting, the plot. Like they're all there for, some job or something, but things get out of hand.
Yeah, and I do remember some good movies that we watched that had one take or one place, which is Boiling Point. Boiling Point is the first one that comes to mind, and
Yeah.
that was a movie about a restaurant that was under pressure, and it was very dope how it was shot. But yeah, there are some bad ones like Humans, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I thought it was entertaining how the movie starts with all of these young people like giving an interview as to why they want to go to this boot camp or this choreographer's training course or whatever. And there's like 24 characters in the movie. It's like a lot of characters,
Yeah.
and that was one thing I didn't like at the beginning because I was like, okay, I'm remembering some names: Claude, Jean, Selva, okay, and then there's like, okay, 17 more people come. What did you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a lot to take in at the beginning. Like they were rolling and rolling, and I was thinking to myself, like, oh God, how am I going to be able to remember like all of these characters? Because when you're watching a movie, you want to get into the characters, you want to know their backstory, you want to know what they're thinking, and all of that. And when you have 24 characters in the movie, it's really hard to like keep in mind who is who. Like, as soon as the movie went into the dance scenes and stuff, I was like, wait, like who was saying who? Like who's who? And who was from Berlin? Who was from like France and whatever? Like I was just like lost there. But yeah, like I guess like in the first part where the camera follows like different conversations, you could get a bit more into the characters. And at that time, I felt like somewhat I can remember some of the names and like complete that puzzle in my head. But it was still confusing. And then afterwards, it didn't matter because everybody kind of lost their mind.
Yeah, definitely was hard to follow. I think it would have been better with a tighter cast. Maybe you could still even have the same number of people, but only focus on like 6 or 7 people, and the
Yeah.
rest of the people are background characters because that's what they ended up being anyway. Like some of the people didn't even matter. The movie boiled down to like Selva, Gazelle, and like Tito's mom and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
yeah. So the movie, after they have these interviews with all these people as to why they love dance and why dance is so important and stuff like that, they have this huge big dance scene, and the dancing was on point, I would say. Like, what did you think
It
of the
was
actual choreography?
it was really good. Like it was, Vogue and popping it and locking it all in the right places. It was interesting. And I mean, yeah, like the movie could have focused when it comes to conversation, maybe it could have focused on, a couple of people, maybe like 5, 6 people. But I actually like that, we saw every character have their own scenes of dancing, like they go into the middle and do their like own thing. And that was interesting. And I guess I can give a little trivia about like how the cast was chosen here.
Please go ahead.
So yeah, like you said, there were 24 actors, and only like two of the actors were actually like famous, and not even like famous, but they were like, you know, they acted in movies before, and all of the other actors, basically like the director, Gaspar Noé. So he just like went to Paris and went to dance clubs, went to ballrooms, you know, trans clubs and stuff like that, and he met dancers there, and he, you know, he talked to them, and he was like, okay, this guy is like good, like let's cast him in our movie. So all the other characters, 22 of them, were like randomly selected. And in one of his interviews, he says like he saw this TV show from Congo, and he likes the guy who was dancing in it, and they contact him from like Facebook, and they buy him like a plane ticket, and he comes and shoots the movie. And he's the guy who does like the weird arm stuff.
Mm.
You remember him?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So they all it was like a, you know, I don't know, very like natural casting. So like none of the characters were kind of famous actually.
This thought just came to mind. A lot of movies, they have their main actors have body doubles, stunt doubles, and stuff like that. But it looked like in this movie, everybody could actually dance, and that's what made it cool. That's what made the choreography so on point. All the popping, locking, the death drops, all the death drops
Mm.
were sick. You know, all the different dance styles too. Like there was a little bit of tango, a little bit of salsa, a lot of hip hop dancing in there, a little classical mixed in there. You know,
Yeah.
stomping. It was very dope with the choreography in the very first half of the movie before the drugs kick in. And it's good to know that the people that they selected to be the actors weren't actually trained actors, and because the acting was good in this movie, I would say everybody seemed like they were actually their roles, and it seemed authentic and real. What did you think of the acting?
Yeah, it was really good, and obviously, like you said, it felt like they were really dancers, and they were actually really dancers. And also, like, you know, everyone had like this unique character. You know, I don't know, like, how do I say this? Like, you know, those unique looking people or unique charactered people that you see on the street, and you think like, oh, they're cool, or they're like, you know, they're doing something artsy or something like that. Everyone was kind of like that, and it was like cool in that way
Hmm.
how they like chose the characters.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So let's just get into the rest of the movie. So after this big dance scene, there's this one shot where after the dance happens, there's these logos on screen of like different production companies or band names, and I didn't really get that part. I didn't understand if they were like doing credits to the music or to the dance companies. I don't know if
Uh,
you found out anything about that part.
Yeah. So like the first part of the movie is actually like where they are shooting like the last scene of the dance thing that they're supposed to shoot in the movie. And it's like the last day of the shooting for them. And when they roll like credits in the middle of the movie, it's basically like the credits for the show in the movie, if that
Mm,
makes sense.
mm,
And yeah, and they include like the actual people who actually like, you know,
mhm,
did this movie. Like there was like it was like Daft Punk was there who produced some of the music in this movie and stuff like that.
mhm.
So yeah, that was a bit weird because it was sort of long. I guess it like that's fine if you do it like in the middle of the movie, but then I was a bit confused because I was like, wait, like is this the end of the movie? Like what is happening?
Yeah.
So that was a bit weird, and some of the people also like said in the reviews it's kind of disconnected them from the movie because they were like in it, you know, they were grooving, the dancing was going on, and then there's like 5 minutes of this credit scene
Are you
with
saying that's
just
what some of the
names.
people who left reviews for the movie, like normal people, said this about the movie?
Yeah, normal people.
Okay, like on what, Letterbox or something like that?
Yeah, everywhere. Letterbox or Reddit. I read
Hmm.
just that one, and that one stroked to me. Like that reviewer was saying, like, you know, it kind of disconnected me in the middle of the movie. Like,
Right.
you know, I was grooving. I was like, you know,
Hmm.
getting to know the characters, and then I'm like, okay, is there going to be a title drop one
Hmm.
hour into the movie, or is this the ending credits? Like, what is going on?
Right. And so after the big dance part, in fact, after the big dance part, and then after that cutaway to the different logos of the people that contributed music and stuff to the film, the first chapter scene comes up, and it's something like "Birth is beautiful" or "Being a mother is beautiful." I forgot exactly the
I
name.
think it was birth is a privilege, is a
Ah,
unique privilege, or something like that.
right. Birth is a unique privilege. And so that part of the scene comes up after one of the characters, I believe the choreographer, puts her son to bed
Mm.
upstairs, and all the people are dancing downstairs. And she tells him, I'll be back. But then, the people start getting more and more high from the LSD and the punch. And then, they're dancing, things start going a bit crazy. And then they see that the son comes downstairs, and the little boy has started drinking the punch. The mother is high too because she drank the punch. So then she locks him in an electrical closet. And we were both so shocked when that happened, right? Because I was like,
Yeah,
what are you doing? That was one of the most tragic parts of the movie because we could kind of see where it was going from
yeah,
there. I don't know.
definitely.
What did you think about naming that chapter "Birth is a Privilege" and then, leading up to this little boy dying?
Wow. Well, I don't know. Also, like before, like within that scene, they show a conversation between the girl who's pregnant and then
Mm,
this blonde girl, right? And then
hmm.
they're talking about like abortion or something, and she says like it's good to have an option to get an abortion or something
Hmm.
like that. And the blonde girl doesn't know her friend is pregnant, and she's like not drinking the punch and stuff like that. So I don't know. It's kind of weird. So like on one hand, you have this like pregnant woman with life, you know, in her body, and she's like contemplating like whether she should keep it or not. And then on the other hand, you have this like, you know, mother with a child, but then like maybe it was sort of like a foreshadowing into what was going to happen to the kid.
I think so,
It
because
was
like,
tragic.
yeah, it's tragic because it's, you know what, this might go on to my bigger point, but I think that conversation there is very important too. Like, I think the theme and message of this movie, which actually isn't nice, right? So I think what they're comparing abortion to by having that conversation right there, and then having the mother put their baby in a place that likely it will die, and eventually
Hmm.
he does. Spoiler for anybody, but please know that anytime we do reviews, it's always going to be spoilers. But yeah, I think what they were comparing is that having an abortion is similar to killing a child, because then leading up to that, I think, is very similar. They're sending sort of that message, I think.
Mm.
And I
I don't
think that's
know.
why they said birth is a privilege at the beginning of the chapter, because they're trying to say that, giving life is so sacred, but people don't look at it that way. Oh, it's just a choice to give birth. And, people aren't responsible with the children that they have. Go ahead.
I don't know if that is necessarily the message, but it's a movie and everyone gets something different from different scenes and messages that the movie gives us. For me, it felt more like literally it is a privilege, because most of the time we don't think being born is a privilege. Like, we don't sit on the Thanksgiving table and we say like, oh, I'm blessed to be born,
Hmm.
and born healthily, or born into a family that who loves me. We don't appreciate those stuff enough.
Yeah.
And coming to this life out of nothing is something like extraordinary. We can't explain. Like, I'm not talking about scientifically, but you know, um, it's something that's like extraordinary. It's
Hmm.
like the miracle of the nature, and we rarely appreciate it.
Hmm.
And also we rarely appreciate the fact that we are alive and we have opportunities to do things. And I don't know. I thought it was more something to that rather
Hmm.
than abortion.
I don't think there's any mistakes when you make a movie like this. And I think the French are very meticulous when they talk about their dialogue and the scenes and what they're supposed to represent. Because I think, like you said, like you told me before we started this X stream, that this director is very famous, he's very beloved,
Hmm.
and he's probably that way because he's very good at film. And I think also what supports, my point about abortion and life and death when it comes to newborns is something that people don't take sacred in certain communities. Is because later in that same chapter, the girl who is pregnant gets kicked in the stomach by one of the people who's on drugs, right? She
Yeah.
tells them she's pregnant, but still gets kicked in the stomach. She goes to confront the girl who attacked her, and then everybody says, "You're lying. You're lying. You don't know who the father is. You're a dirty girl," and all that sort of stuff. And then
Hmm.
they push her to almost take her own life, right?
Yeah.
And going to show, like, maybe I think what they're trying to say is that maybe he thinks these people aren't very. They don't take life to be sacred,
Yeah.
and that's what I think, man. I don't know.
Maybe, but I'm gonna give another interesting trivia here, which I thought it was like truly interesting.
Mhm.
So actually, it says on Wikipedia that, and most of the other sources, that like the acting in this movie was improvised on the spot, because Gaspar Noé, he like sort of met the actors and then started developing characters,
Mhm.
and he just like sort of gave background, not background, but just sort of like give some of the characters, okay, so this is the name of your character, and also like some of them he even asked, what do you want your character's name to be, and stuff like that. So most of the story was like kind of improvised by the cast, by the actors themselves. They
Mm.
didn't have dialogues, and they were just like, they could have said or do anything that they wanted. They had that sort of liberty.
Mm.
So maybe we don't know like what things are edited by the director and what things came naturally from the actors that
Mm.
created some sort of persona in their heads.
That's very interesting, and that gives a new take on the film. That gives a
Yeah.
very new take on the film. I just generally view films as like the creations of the producers, writer, director, and so I just am more. I analyze it through that lens. I've never heard of a movie where people can just ad lib anything. That's very new to me.
Yeah. I mean, I'm guessing like, yeah, he did added like some certain things, tips, and maybe like lines here and there. I would say, but like they shot the movie in 15 days,
Mm.
and so they just basically did takes on takes on takes, 4 or 5 hours takes of like each part or something like that. And then I guess he edited the ones that he liked. He edited out the dialogues that he liked and thought it was good for the movie, or
Mm.
something like that. But yeah, it's very interesting that he did something like this.
Yeah, I've never heard of something like that. I've heard of actors just ad libbing a line here or there, but not, entire scenes or entire characters. I thought it's usually very tightly controlled. But moving on from that, there are more weird things that happen throughout the movie. The people are very upset that they got drugged. So then they start turning on each other. Oh, who did it? No, you did it. Oh, are you drunk or are you high? You're not drunk. You're not high. So you must have been the one who did it. They start blaming the choreographer, but they end up not turning on her. And then they push one of the guys outside in the cold to die from hypothermia. Then they just continue dancing on and stuff like that. People's true selves start to come out. So, like, everybody sort of disliked David at first. David was one of the dancers who was dating another dancer, but her brother didn't like it. So then there's this animosity between them throughout the entire time. And nobody wants to be around David because they think he sleeps with everything that moves and he has STDs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then they start looking for drugs like Coke to try to bring down the high. But one girl who has the coke doesn't want to give it up, and then she gets on fire. There's so many things that just happen throughout the movie. What did
Yeah.
you think about that sort of middle part where everything was just going to hell?
Yeah, I think that part was just like, in the beginning, they kind of sort of had like the sweet part of the high, like as they were reaching to the climax, because that's the best part, I guess. And
Mm.
then you have like the time where you reach the climax. And I never tried SAD, but seeing that movie, like I'm scared of trying it,
Hmm.
SAD or any other like hardcore drugs. That's been my sort of like phobia about like hardcore drugs. And after seeing this movie, that definitely like just gave me an anxiety because it's like a place where you cannot escape. You cannot
Hmm.
escape your own mind
Hmm.
when you're thinking about that
Hmm.
or whatever you're thinking about. So that was pretty freaky for me to watch. I don't know. Have you tried LSD?
Yeah, I did. I was going to talk about that later, but
Okay.
I had an experience very similar to this climax story. Like it was New Year's Eve, and I was with a bunch of friends while I was abroad teaching English in a place called Tunisia, and we all got together, got really shit faced, and then when the clock hit 12, we all took tabs. And it was all love. Like, yeah, one girl was by the toilet later that night trying to throw up and saying she was fat, even though she weighed like 100 pounds. But we didn't end up having climax. Nobody locked the baby in the closet. Nobody was peeing on the floor. None of that happened. But I think the drug part of the movie I want to talk about later. I just want to talk about that middle part and what
Okay.
was happening. I think one of the things that made this movie kind of scary was just the constant screaming, right? So like
Yeah.
one character would be walking through the hallways or going back to the dance floor, and even they weren't in another room. You could hear the screams from the other room. You could hear the baby crying in the closet, the people moaning on the dance floor, a person screaming in pain, and you didn't know what was going on. And it created
Yeah.
this sort of dread in the atmosphere of the entire movie. And I thought that was very unique because screams have so much terror in them, and not a lot of horror movies use them. What did you think of that?
Yeah, definitely. Like it was disturbing in a good way. Like you said, like not only you can't escape your own mind, but you can't also escape like what other people are going through as well in that sort of setting. And yeah, it was just like a haunting effect that the movie had. Like especially the kid like screaming. Like I was feeling so bad for the kid and this blonde girl who was I guess one of the main characters in the movie. Yeah,
Selva.
she
Are you talking about Selva? Or are you
Selva.
talking about
Yeah.
the girl that looked like Ice Spice?
No, I'm talking about Salva. Yeah, Salva was like in pain of the screams as well, and I felt her pain. I was like, "Girl, I get it. Like, it's so bad."
Hmm.
But then she kind of also had like her own like freak out scene where she was like kicking walls and undressing and putting her hands in her tights and looking at the mirror and screaming.
I mean,
So
parts like that are kind of funny because I'm not gonna lie, I've been so messed up that I look in the mirror and I'm like, "Whoa," you know what I mean? Parts like that are kind of funny. Like there were some moments in there where you felt that.
yeah, yeah, but also like I don't know. In when I was reading some of the reviews in Forbes, they did a review and they said like the characters were all like tripping and stuff like that because you know how in the beginning of the movie you see this like clips of these people who are talking about their aspirations and dreams and their characters and stuff like that and why they're dancing. So they all have like big dreams. They're young. They're ambitious. And the reason that they freak out so much is because like even though they have these big dreams and stuff, they also have a lot of problems, right? Some
Hmm.
of them were like David or David, like he was a maybe a sex addict. I don't
Hmm.
know.
Hmm.
And definitely one of the girls, probably the last girl that we see in the movie, was a drug addict.
Right.
And I don't know, like the two guys, two black guys who were talking in the conversations, maybe they worried about looking masculine in an art form that's not so masculine.
Mm.
And I'm taking this from the review.
Yeah.
And some of them had like family members issues. One of them was pregnant and stuff like that. So
Right.
when they were on that high, they started to like realize all their fears and all their like inner demons, and that's why
Right.
they freaked out so much.
I think that's a very powerful, like, how can I say, reading into the movie, because I think that's very true, and I think that touches on why a lot of people are scared to take hallucinogenic drugs,
Mm-hmm.
because I think a lot of people are scared to see their inner self. I took ayahuasca, and I was told before, like, you're going to see some stuff you can't imagine, and you're going to go deep into your soul and that sort of stuff. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people refuse to take those type of drugs because they don't want to look deep inside themselves. We're all carrying trauma and burdens inside our mind, and all the sorts of self doubt and negative feelings inside our souls.
Yeah,
And
definitely. I'm one of them. I'm scared.
but I see. I'm not going to say I'm perfect, but I was like that. But I took those hallucinogenics, and I saw inside myself, and I realized, oh, I'm actually okay. So that's why
Well,
I'm
that's
not scared.
good.
That's why I'm not scared to actually like do those things. But I can understand why people are, because we all have those things inside of us. And I do
Yeah.
think there is some truth, because like when the two guys were talking about the two black guys, right, who are hyper masculine, they're like thug dancers, right?
Yeah,
Street dance.
they want to smash everything.
They want to smash everything, but then it became sort of homoerotic. They're talking about, I'm gonna go into the butthole, like I'm gonna go raw
Yeah.
and dry, like and it kind of got really gross. And then other stuff, where people were talking and gossiping about each other, they sort of revealed things about themselves too,
Yeah.
their insecurities, not only in the beginning section where they were doing the interviews, but then also when they were at the party too.
Yeah. Yeah. And also like the director, like someone asked him if the movie was like anti-drug or something, and he said like actually he did LSD while shooting this movie, which is fun. a fun trivia, but he also said like he's not anti-drugs, he's anti-fear, and he thinks just like you. He says something like, people usually are not afraid of drugs, they're afraid of fear, because drugs release, that sort of raw fear about, yourself.
Right. Absolutely. And I think that's what we were seeing. All the scary things came from the fears that people had. And I think, the fear of the choir director, I mean, I don't know why I keep saying choir director, choreographer, losing her baby, right? There's no bigger fear for a mother than losing her baby. That
Yeah.
fear came true when she did the drugs.
And she killed him. Like, she's the
Yeah,
reason.
right, right. And like, the fear of losing your baby is the same for a pregnant woman. And that possibly happened to the girl, who got kicked in the stomach, right, during the
Yeah.
drugs. And so many other things, right? And yeah, I think that part of the movie really showed it. Let's get past the middle and go towards the end. So towards the end of the movie, things get really, really bad. The choreographer can't find the keys to the door where she locked her son in. The girl got burnt in the back of the head who had coke. There's one girl in the shower trying to wash off the blood on her body. People are on the dance floor breaking their own arms trying to do new dance moves and stuff like that. People are now like having like just full on sex on the dance floor.
Yeah.
Things
Or
like
like,
that.
yeah, just like weirdly like harassing each other, like physically and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah,
Peeing on the floor.
I think it got really gross when Gazelle, the black girl, one of the dancers, who was in a relationship with David, but her brother didn't like David. Her brother beats up David and then goes in the back and tries to sleep with his own sister until
Yeah.
David breaks it up, right? And
Yeah.
that shows that deep down inside, the brother was jealous of his sister because he was incestuously attracted to his sister. So I,
Yeah. That
I
was
think
very disturbing.
very disturbing. And the movie sort of ends with David getting killed, which I thought was interesting. I mean, not the movie doesn't end like that, but that's like the climax of the movie.
I mean, was he dead though? Is he dead? I don't know. Somebody hit his head, but I don't know if he was dead.
I think they slammed him on the floor really, really hard on his head, and I think possibly he died, but we don't
The,
know.
the thing is, like, when towards the end of the movie, okay, so the cop shows up. It's like the morning now, and they show everyone then. Like, okay, so it's the morning, and some of the highs are dying down, some of them are not. Some people are sleeping and stuff like that. So I couldn't really tell like who was dead and who was not, except like a couple of people who were moving. So yeah, that was interesting too, because that kind of felt, there, 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 there's no need for everything to be said in a movie, I guess.
I thought it was interesting for David to get, that sort of treatment though, because in the movie, he is kind of an innocent guy, honestly. I mean, I feel like David constantly was seeking love and attention from people,
Yeah.
similar to the girl who had the afro, the Ice Spice looking girl.
Hmm.
Like the Ice Spice girl wanted all the other girls to talk to her, and nobody wanted to be her friend. And David had this reputation of being a sex addict who slept with everybody, and he's, STDs reap from his pores. But the entire movie, he's trying to just have people pay attention to him and like love him and stuff like that, and they sort of like hurt him. Meanwhile, everybody else was doing evil. I kind of thought that was interesting though.
Yeah,
What did you think of
definitely.
that?
Like, he went to the Ice Spice and Seva.
Hmm.
They went into one room, and Ice Spice was kind of like trying to have sex with her. And then, yeah, like the two other gay guys, DJ Daddy and the other
Hmm.
guy, they were in another room. And David basically goes both of the rooms, and in both of them, people tell him to get out. Nobody wants you. Nobody loves you, and he starts crying and stuff. So, yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely true. And like throughout the conversations and stuff earlier in the movie, also we don't really like get any depth from him.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, he's one way when he's sober, right? This very macho sex addict. But then when he's high, he's just this guy who's clinging to everybody, trying to get love and attention, right? And
Yeah.
everybody rejects him. So I thought that was interesting. And speaking of DJ Daddy, one of my favorite scenes in the movie was the scene when they came up to Daddy and he was wearing the blonde wig, and then he turns the blonde wig over his face and he screams, but we don't know if that scream is like happy or painful. I don't know. It was so disturbing the way the blonde wig was over his face. That was one of my
Mm.
favorite scenes, honestly. I just wanted to say that.
Why did you think it was disturbing? That's interesting.
Well, number one, I mean, whenever you see a black man in a blonde wig, that's weird. Big 6'4" black man.
Get used to it.
No, man. And so it was just disturbing the way the wig was over his mouth. You couldn't tell what emotion it was. It was like pain, or was it joy? Was it a moan? Was it a scream? And then it was like hoarse, as if he smokes like 20 cigarettes a day. So it was just very disturbing.
It kind of felt like suffocation to me.
Mm, maybe. Ooh, that's deep. I mean, that's very deep. But now that we summarized the movie and covered everything, right? I got to go on a rant because as much as I enjoyed this movie, there were parts that annoyed me. The number one thing was like towards the scene at the end when the camera is upside down, and there are many parts of the movie where the camera angles are just too obtuse, and you have to literally turn your head to see what's happening. That was bothering for me. I don't. I felt like they overdid it with the twisted angles. What did you think?
I mean, I like the angles. I didn't find it to be like nauseating or kind of like suffocating or I don't know, disorienting, whatever. I liked it because I thought, how you're like, okay, this is the hardcore experience I had. When you're really drunk and you lie down and everything spins, and then you have to
Definitely.
like get up, like you're
Hmm.
on a roller coaster, right?
Hmm.
And I imagined like how those characters felt in their heads, like everything's spinning. I'm seeing
Hmm.
shit like upside down, and I don't know, it's like weird. And yeah, I guess like, yeah, that's one part where the lights went off because the kid who was locked in the electrical room like died because he touched the, I don't know what is that, like
Power
the
generator.
power generator, and the lights went off, and it was just like this red light,
Mm-hmm.
and it was kind of dark, and they started doing like the twirly camera angles there. That was a bit like bothersome, but I don't know, I liked it. I kind of felt like it reflected the mood and the point of view of the, you know, the high people.
Right. I thought one of the most disturbing parts was when that happened, when Tito opened the power generator and got shocked. Somebody said, "Tito is fried." I
I
said, "What?"
know.
I said, "What?"
Why would you say that?
That's kind of funny, but it's also really messed up. But that's if it wasn't a movie, I wouldn't laugh.
Wow.
If it wasn't a movie, I wouldn't laugh. But all right, so another thing that I complain about with this movie is just a meta analysis of it. And bear with me here, because I know you're going to disagree with me on this. But
Okay.
my problem with this movie is that when you ask, what is this movie about? What are they trying to say? I feel like the movie is somewhat, in a way, trying to like put down or reveal some inner thought that we all think, or some people think, not all think, but some people think that gay people, trans people, minorities, if we put them in a room and leave them to their own devices, they are self-destructive. Or not even all gays or all trans people or all minorities, but people of this certain subculture, the people who are really into drugs, really into dance, really into art, really into all these sort of things. There's a group of people who tend to think that this is decadent and it's degeneracy. And when these people are left to their own devices, they will, hurt their own children, do drugs, and even turn on themselves and be self-destructive in a way that is not constructive for society. And I feel like that's backed up with it's backed up by the ending when the police walk in and they walk into the room very authoritative with the light shining behind them as if they're angels from heaven. And then they look at this scene of all these gay people who are dancing their night away, high on drugs, and now some of them are dead, some of them are missing, some of them have burnt hair, and things like that. I felt like, if you look at this movie from the lens of like a person who's already critical of a certain group of people, you'll say, "Yep, that's them." You get what I'm saying? Does that make
Mm,
sense?
no, I get it. It makes sense. Like it, I think that's an interesting take. I think that's a valid take, but I'm not like, I don't see it that way. I'll say, because like I don't know, like it's just the art world is so colorful and different, and there are a lot of people in the art world who use art to avoid their fears,
Hmm.
and some of these artists do really like make incredible art that we appreciate. Not all of them are that way, but some of them are, and so maybe it was reflection of those type of kids, like young artists who are sort of like maybe not yet in peace with their fears and certain things about their lives. I would put it more in that way,
Hmm.
rather than I don't know, like
But,
if this movie was like 24 Rockettes, all white straight like women, let's say, I
mhm.
don't know, it wouldn't be like I mean, you can still make it like this. They go on LSD thing and then they just like um, get messed up and stuff like that. But that doesn't reflect the truth
I feel like
of the dancing scene specifically.
I feel like if you tell this story with any group of people, if you make it all white cheerleaders, a bunch of white male CEOs, a bunch of gay and trans minorities in a dance party, and you tell this story about what would happen if they all took LSD and they were trapped in this room together for hours, that that movie is going to be, I would say, reflective of the people that do it. Because I would say that I've done drugs and other people do drugs all the time, and they don't end up going on murderous sprees or locking babies in closets, right? You do dumb stuff when you're on drugs, but you don't, commit murder, for example,
Yeah,
right?
of
So
course. And you
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, no, I just feel like when you tell this story this way, right? And you have this select group of people who come from this background, and then you make them do things that are totally abnormal, even for people who are on drugs. You're kind of pointing in that direction, that's saying that, see, that's what those people are really like. Because we were just talking earlier that one of the themes of the movie is that drugs reveal your inner fears and also who you really are. We were just agreeing on that. So if that's the case, if we agree on that, then what is the movie saying by saying that these people will naturally do this when they're on drugs? Do you get what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying, but it's a mixed group of people. So why would you necessarily think like these people? And also, nobody like these people didn't like just go on a drug bender. They were like forcefully drugged. Like they were like drugged without their realization. So
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't like everybody on this group was a drug addict or anything like that. Or the movie's not saying like, oh, if you're like gay or trans or you're a dancer or you're a minority, you're gonna do drugs and love it. It's not that. And actually, the person who drugged them was a white girl. But you know, so I don't think that's necessarily like the focus in the movie.
I mean,
I do get what you're saying. I do get it. But I don't know. I just don't feel that type of representation because yeah, maybe not this sort of extreme thing doesn't happen. But I also read something
tell me.
on Reddit.
But
Somebody said like,
but
and this
I just
guy,
want to say something. I just want to say
yeah,
something though before you jump in there. I'm sorry, but you said like, oh, it's a mixed group of people. Yeah, they might come from different countries, different races, different backgrounds, but they're all a part of this culture. It's like a cultural thing. Like you can be, a dancer in this world, and of course you don't have to be gay because I guess David is like the hetero straight guy in this mix too, and the two other thug dancers, right? They're supposedly straight guys too. So yeah, but they're still in this culture world together. You get what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah. Um, so I'm gonna read this comment. as a counter argument for you.
Go ahead.
So someone in Reddit said, I can tell who the real acid heads are in this thread because all the real acid heads know that this is something that could actually happen. Meanwhile, you have people who've tried a handful of times and intentionally, unlike the subjects of this film, at most claiming it's an exaggeration and that this could never happen. LSD is amazing and I love it, but it's serious shit. So you have to consider, like, you're like, maybe you're someone who never have done LSD, and then somebody, spiked the sangria. I would be freaking out too, to be honest.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I'm a person who's done hallucinogenics on purpose, willingly, with people I know or by myself, right? So I guess there's a difference. I have that privilege of not being drugged. And I know a lot of people who have been drugged before, and yeah, they end up doing stupid stuff, right? But I think, I wanted to be respectful to this movie and not actually give that take where I said that the movie is trying to paint this community in a bad light. But because at the beginning of the movie, it said that this is based on true events. So I thought that this movie was like a retelling of a true crime story, that a bunch of kids got high one night and then some people died. So that's why I didn't actually want to give that take. But I think you told me something before we started this stream. So
Yeah.
is this movie actually based on a true story?
It's very loosely based on the story. So in 1990s, something like this happened in a dance troupe in France, and they had like someone spike their LSD in an after party. But in the real event, nothing actually happens, like killing or harming or anything like that. People just trip for a very long time, but there's no violent acts that's happening in the real story.
Right. And so on one hand, yeah, a movie has to have drama. It has to have something that's engaging, that makes you want to watch it. So I can understand the director saying, okay, let's have some murder, some sex, some violence and stuff like that. That's one thing. But the other thing is that when you do make those things happen out of a situation where nothing actually happened, you're making it seem like these people, because sometimes the media is more important than the actual truth, right? Like you could make a movie that says black men ran around the US as soon as slavery was over, they started attacking white women everywhere, right?
Yeah.
That never happened. But a movie was made like that, and it was called The Birth of a Nation. And it showed black men running all over the nation, attacking white women, doing horrible things, right? And that movie helped influence a generation of people to really dislike black people. Do you get what I'm saying? So I feel like media is very important, and you have to be careful with the messaging, because somebody might see this movie and say, oh, these are what those people are like. I've never met a gay person. I've never met a trans person. I've never met these sorts of minorities and stuff like that. But this is what they will do when they're left to their own devices. Do you get what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying, but those people will think like that whether they see Climax or not, Simon. And also, what is wrong with being being black and gay and being high? There's nothing wrong with that. So
I'm not saying. I'm saying the exact opposite. I'm saying there is nothing wrong with that, but the movie paints it as if there is, because the people do get high in this case. And in the true story, nothing happened. But you're retelling the story that when these black and brown gay kids got together, they ended up committing murder, aborting babies, alive and dead. The ones in the fetus and the ones already outside. You get what I'm saying?
Okay. I'm not arguing with you on this anymore.
I don't know. How do you interpret the movie? Because that's what I see the problem is. When you ask me, what is it about? What is the theme? What is the message? It's an anti-drug movie that also, in a way, paints a certain community around a culture of dance bad. Because, like, imagine if, like, they told this movie about rappers, right? I used to be a rapper. I love hip-hop. And I used to hang out with battle rappers, right? And that's a very deep subculture of people, right? And imagine somebody told a movie where a bunch of battle rappers hang out, smoke a bunch of weed, and then we decide to, I don't know, commit violent crime throughout the city. I would be like, what? What? Imagine you're a dancer. Imagine that you're a dancer, right? And you're heavy into dance. And then you watch this movie and you're like, what? That's not us.
Wow.
That's not what we do. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, for me, it was like, if you're at a certain place with certain people, some shit can really go wrong. I feel like that was the moral or the message of the story. Like, you can have that thing that just happened while you were just like working and dancing for a movie or whatever, and something happens that just f's up everybody and everything, and things can really go wrong really fast. Because it's not like, yeah, maybe this isn't something that happens every day, obviously, but it's not like this is something that's impossible. We've heard stories on the news about like people getting drugged out and doing crazy things, right? So for me, it was like that. Like, I don't know, there was some like innocence into how the thing started, because it was just like, okay, like somebody spiked the punch, but nobody saw like what was about to come, and everybody was like left in their own like heads and fears and whatnot. So for me, it was like that, I guess.
Okay, I got you. So we end up with two different interpretations of the movie. I think this is a fascist film. It's very hateful and it's propaganda, and I do not support anybody watching this movie. So what do you rate it from 1 to 10?
I rate it an 8.5.
I give it a solid 7. Solid 7.
Okay.
Great cinematography, great acting, interesting parts of the movie, great horror movie for just, body horror. But the overall theme is something I just can't get with. I can't get with it.
Okay. Can I finish off with a funny review?
Yeah, I also wanted to ask my guy, the Violator, to speak if he wants to speak before we wrap up in about 5 minutes. So go ahead, read your review.
He did leave a comment saying they started from human to animals.
I just now saw that like 1 minute ago.
Yeah, but yeah, so there were two like really funny comments on Letterboxd. One of them was like, somebody said they lived, they served cunt, and died.
They slayed. Literally, they slayed.
Yeah. And another comment said, Gaspar, watch the last 20 minutes of Mother! Exclamation point. Do you remember that movie?
I love Mother. Mother is one of my favorite movies, actually. I like that.
And he talked to himself, I can do better.
Mm.
So yeah, these were like the funny comments.
I would definitely say Mother is a better movie, but it's equally as entertaining, I would say.
Yeah,
but,
it's more like dance version of Mother, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. The dancing was good, but it was not Rihanna Fenty level. You know, they're not going to be on the next Fenty show, but
wow.
They're good. They're good.
Okay.
But shout out to Violator for sticking in. I don't know if you've been listening the entire time, but I would like to hear what you think about this movie if you want to speak. I gave you the invite to speak. We'll wait maybe 1 minute if you want to hop on.
Yeah, it was fun. I liked it. I wasn't sure if you liked the dancing because I feel like you're not a biggest fan of dancing.
No, I am. Okay. Dancing is hip hop. What are you talking about? I love hip hop. So like, come on. I appreciate dancing. Dancing is our culture. I'm looking. I didn't want to say this in the review, but it's kind of funny seeing foreigners do our culture because all those movies come from, you know who.
Okay.
Black Americans.
Okay.
I'm just saying. But anyway, Violator. Yeah, you can speak. Go ahead, speak. All right. This is our first speaker in our movie review section. So shout out to Violator. I don't know who you are, but hello? Go ahead. Hey, how are you?
Hi, I'm good, thanks.
Yeah, so have you seen the movie Climax?
Yeah, I have seen the movie, yeah.
Yeah, so what did you think of it?
Well, I think I love this movie. It's a really great movie. It's the cinematography is really interesting, like you said. I really like the there's a lot of scenes like they didn't cut, you know. They go for like 5 or 6 minutes without a cut, and I thought that was really impressive.
Yeah, like the long shots.
Yeah, the long shots. Yeah,
they were really good.
Yeah.
I
also liked the, it felt very like, I don't know, like a love letter maybe to France, because while everything is happening, they have the French flag, in the background. And like I think I have him say, but I don't know, maybe I made it up. The movie's like hell. They start like from heaven, and they go down to hell. Even the colors at the ending of the movie, they're mostly like red.
Yeah, there were a lot of red scenes, definitely, and that's a good point. Like it represents hell.
Can you explain how like it's a love letter to France? Because the movie started with that thing that said like this movie is proudly French. But how is it a love letter? How do you see that?
Because for me, when the director sees these things, he sees it with he sees it in like in a humanistic way. As there is good as there is bad. It's just how people are, not like specifically they're like basically on their ethnicity or something, just on people, on themselves. He has a movie, it's named I Stand Alone. It's like a white guy, and he gets out of jail because he molested his like young, low IQ daughter. I don't know how to say it in English, handicapped, mental handicapped, and he's very racist, and it's a very horrific movie. But at the same time, I feel like the director looks at him with some empathy,
Sounds like a good movie. Should we watch it? Do you suggest that we check that movie out?
I mean, it's very disturbing, but yeah, it's a nice movie. It's a good movie.
Well, good thing we like them.
I have to say, one of my favorite movies is a French movie. It's called Martyrs. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Oh, I see that movie. It's a horror movie, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that movie is very scary, very disturbing. Yeah.
Yeah, very disturbing. Are you from France?
I know. I'm Portuguese.
Oh, okay. Do you watch a lot of French movies?
Not really.
Do you have any good Portuguese movies for us to check out?
No, not really. I don't like Portuguese movies.
All right. Well, thank you, Violator. I'm about to go back to work, but it was very nice to meet you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me here.
No problem.
See you later.
See you later.